So my name's Al Bickham and I'm Studio Communications Manager at the Creative Assembly.
My name is Jan Vanderkrabben and I'm a Senior Campaign Designer at the Creative Assembly.
Oh, so you actually do the single player campaign?
I do parts of it, yes.
So what can players expect from the new installment of from this new installment in the Total War franchise?
First? Okay. So with Shogun 2 it was about focus, it was about looking at one culture and defining the kind of warriors that are in that culture. And it was about polishing the game systems, so we've gone from that narrow sort of laser focus on a single culture to great diversity. So Rome 2 is about an enormous geographic area with multiple cultures, multiple factions within those cultures, and it's about greater detail and just more interesting options everywhere, really, greater depth, and it's just. I know we probably say this a lot with every type of war game. It's more epic in scale than ever before.
So 10 years after, we now have a sequel to the Total War Rome portion of the Total War franchise. Why do you guys decide to come back now with a new Rome in the Total War franchise?
I think it was always the most popular, or one of the most popular settings for us and for our fans.
Yeah.
We've often heard from the fans in the forums, oh, come on, make another Rome title,
Every time we release the Shogun 2 DLC, it's like, that's great, where's Rome 2? Where's Rome 2? It's got to be done at some point. So.
And the other thing is Rome is let's say the ancient world is such an interesting era as well, where so much happened, and especially, of course, for Europe and the Middle East, it's something where all of us learned about it in school. We all have our visions of it. We've read, Asterix comics. We've seen the movies Gladiator. Everybody can relate to it because it's really it's the history of our culture in Europe. And I think even outside Europe, the fascination is shared. But in the United States, people are completely crazy about Rome too. Especially with the series that came out a while ago. That was a huge hit, and really got Rome back on the popular culture map.
Definitely, and it's an incredibly iconic era, and also it's the ultimate empire building era, right? And it's it's perfect. It's got all the DNA for a great total war game because you've got a massive range of different factions, any one of which who, if they'd made certain choices, could have risen to the top and become the great big empire. So it's it's a perfect empire building era. But as Jan says, it's totally iconic as well. It defines many of our European cultures, and for other markets such as America, it's an empire. It's the world's first superpower, right? So it's an intriguing and interesting. And also was a time in which individuals made choices, made personal choices, which affected half of the known world. An incredible time.
I mean, if you just think about some of those names, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Pyrrhus, Cleopatra, all of these people, their names, everybody knows them. Over 2,000 years later,
including people from different cultures. Everybody
absolutely,
knows
of course, the entire world knows them, and I think that's what really makes this era so, well, you said epic and historic as well.
Yeah. It's totally a cross-platform era.
So, between the Roman times, we know from the Rome of HBO and the classic Hollywood films, which do you think is closest to Total War Rome 2?
Ooh, that's a difficult one.
I think we're more on the modern side. I think you can compare us more to the Rome series and to like Gladiator. In that sense, it's not so cheesy. And our sets don't look like they're made of styrofoam.
They certainly do not.
And our music is better. I have nothing against the classic films. They're really good, and there's some really great filmmaking in the classic films. But obviously, they have aged.
Yes, they have.
We aim for a certain kind of gritty realism in that. And the kind of detail that's in there is the sort of thing you can put the camera next to a man's face while he's in battle and see him fighting, you know, see him animated like this and shouting to his buddies, and you know, but then you pull back and you see there's 20,000 of those guys all having those individual experiences. You know, that's the scale of epic we're looking at.
I noticed that you guys have done a lot of animation work. It looks really great right now. I saw a lot of videos as I was doing research.
Yeah.
I thought the animation work that you guys did is amazing. You want to talk a little bit about the animation work?
Well, yeah. So we actually we've always done a lot of motion capture, but our motion capture facilities have always been fairly limited, and when we've needed to do bigger, more in-depth scenes with multiple people fighting, for example, we've always had to outsource it in some way, either buy in data or go to another studio where they've got big facilities. So was it last year? I think it was
Last year,
start of last year, we constructed our own motion capture facility. So we now own one of the biggest motion capture facilities, studio-owned motion capture facilities in Europe. It's a massive 64 camera setup, and we've got a giant volume so we can have multiple people fighting. And it's a really state-of-the-art environment. And it's going to be useful for every game we ever do from now on, you know. So we've been able to get just a much greater, you know, up the volume of animation data that we can capture. So that's been really helpful. It means it's also kind of essential because we have so many, you know, I was talking about the differences between Shogun and Rome earlier, and you know, Shogun to 40 or 50 battlefield unit types, Rome to over 700, right? So individually, those different units need to have certain kinds of animations. So your guy with a sword needs to be able to fight convincingly against a guy with a spear, a guy with a sword, a guy on a horse with a spear, a guy on a horse with a sword, an elephant, a guy on a chariot, you know. So we have to create bespoke animations to make that convincing, make those individual matches convincing.
It's amazing the kind of work that you guys do to basically to do animations on a game that a lot of people might just, you know, min-max players might just zoom out all the way and it's like they never get to see that.
Absolutely,
stuff. And I think that the animation work is just amazing.
Well, it's important to us as well that every part of that game looks great, right? So, you know, you go down, there would be no point in us putting all that detail into the character faces and the armor. So go and zoom in when you play the game and see the detail. You know, every piece of armor has a randomised dirt and rust patterns on it. You know, because we've got this kind of realistic, I'd say, gritty vision of war kind of idea going on. You know, so we support that with in the whole environment around it, with audio, with guys chatting to each other, as I said. With the animations, with the look and feel of the environments and the lighting in the environment, you know. So you can't just kind of do one of those things and leave the rest to chance, you know. So you have to fill that whole thing out and make it convincing whether you're this far away or this far away, right? So yeah,
it's definitely looking really, really good. So can you tell us a little bit about the setting for the single player campaign?
Well, there isn't just one single player campaign. You can play as Rome, obviously, but you can also play as several other factions. And so for each of these factions, we've looked at the history of that faction and what they have achieved or what they have tried to achieve. Sometimes there has been some guesswork involved, of course. And so each faction essentially has its own set of goals which will lead the player towards victory. And these goals are different, again, according to what this faction historically was about. So for example, for Rome, we guide the player to essentially recreate the Roman Empire, whereas for Carthage we guide the player to kind of, take Spain, then take Gaul, then cross the Alps, attack Rome and all that, So each faction has its own kind of mini storyline and campaign in that sense. But it's not like the player has to play a certain way. The player is very open about how he wants to play. He can choose to follow the storyline or not at all. He can do his own thing and win the game a different way. So we also have not just a military victory this time, but you can also win economically or you can also win culturally. So that all the different play styles really have a way of being expressed in the game and leading to victory, most importantly.
That's very interesting. So you're giving the players a lot of choice. They don't have to actually follow a campaign. It's like, I don't want to do what the campaign says. I want to go and just attack this guy.
Exactly.
Of course, they can just do that.
Yeah,
it's a sandbox, really.
So we really wanted to give the player a guide of what would be a good idea to do, and what historically was done. A bit of education is in there as well. But you know, it's the player's choice, really.
So you were mentioning factions, and I have a very personal question. Where are the Lusitanians in the middle of all this?
They're a small faction in Iberia.
They actually appear in game?
I think the Lusitani is one of the factions that is in southern Portugal. Yes.
Exactly.
It's not playable.
Because I'm from
unfortunately.
Portugal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in the modern day Portugal there are two factions. One of them is the Lusitani, and the other one I forgot. Yes, you can't play them, but you can conquer them.
That's what we do best these days. We get conquered.
Or you can ally with them
Everybody's
or
got a
whatever.
skill, yeah.
No, we focused on the big, historically big factions that.
We were pretty big in our day, huh?
But you know, we always look not just at how big was the faction, but also how known is it. You know, it's I guess of course there were many.
You're not really helping yourself.
I'm sorry, but you know, you can't compare what people know about Rome,
Yes.
you know, to like the Lusitani. Even when we look at, for example, the Gallic factions and the Germanic factions, it was very hard for us to decide which faction do we make playable, because you know there were so many of them, and people haven't heard of half of them. So we're a bit like, you know, we want to have something.
It's a tough call to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I expect some DLC on that in the future.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
Cool.
So, what is your gameplay feature for both of you?
Sorry, our gameplay feature of
Yeah, your
choice.
favorite gameplay feature of Rome 2.
For me, it's armies really, and the way armies have changed. So, in previous Total War games, all an army has been really is a stack of troops with a general in it, and that's an army. It moves around the map. That stack moves around, has fights, conquers cities, or whatever. You know, very important core part of Total War gameplay. Armies now they're almost like characters in their own right, because you know the individual units in an army. You can't just take a unit out of the army and send it off across the map. You know, it's part of the army, and that army it gains its own experience. You can apply skills to it as it gains. You can get up to 10 levels, as it were. You know, like an RPG character almost, and you can give it an army tradition. You know, and a tradition it's a skill buff to some aspect of the army's ability to fight. It could be improving its abilities to ambush, it could be improving its abilities with siege weapons, it could be reducing the cost of certain troop types or something like that. So, you know, you can choose your skills and level those skills up, and over time the army becomes a carefully crafted fighting force that is completely unique on the map. And if that army is destroyed, the beauty of this whole system, right? The beauty of this whole system, because we call it kind of tradition system. If your army dies, or in fact, if you retire it because you can't afford to upkeep and hold that army, you can retire it. Later on, you can open the cupboard and get the Eagle standard for that army out and dust it off, you know. And you can bring some new troops in, and they will benefit from all the traditions that you've gained over time. So the army never dies. The army never dies. It's always, even if it's wiped out in battle, you can raise the standard, put some green recruits underneath it, and they'll still, while they won't have individual unit veterancy, they'll carry on the tradition of the army. And you know what? You think about the 101st Airborne, or the, you know, any, you know, notable kind of unit.
Military units. So to
Exactly. They have traditions. They have specific ways of teaching their troops to do certain things. You know, you have units that are particularly good with artillery, for example. You know, you have, you know, the Royal Artillery Corps, you know, they're the Royal Artillery Corps because they're trained to use artillery, you know, to really well, to a very high standard. So it's you know, it reflects the idea that you've got these legendary, named, unique armies throughout history, and those you're going to go and craft a bunch of those in the game, and they are going to take your war out into the world for you, you know, and you can rename them. You get a little panel, you can scroll through with their history of all the battles and all the places they've been, and it's, you know,
it's very interesting because it actually it brings life to the army.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah,
does,
that's
yeah.
the idea. And we want to keep people. Sorry, I'll shut up.
No, it's okay.
It's interesting.
It's actually very good. I mean, it's good when you meet people that are passionate about the game. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
appreciate interviewing them.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Anyway, I will shut up and let you answer.
For me, it's kind of hard to pin down one feature, but to me, there are really two features that stand out on the campaign side, which is what I'm working on. And the first one is diplomacy. Diplomacy has really improved since the previous Total War titles, because now you can really see what the AI thinks of you. The AI has a memory of your actions, so you can see like, okay,
Did you say the AI?
yeah.
I didn't understand that. Sorry.
Sorry, no worries. So yeah, the AI has a memory of all the actions that you have done against them, or for their friends, or against their friends. So for example, if I attack the enemy of somebody, then these guys will like me more. And then if I start trading with them, over time they will like me even more. But then if I attack their friends, they will like me less. And this is something that we are now showing to the player. The player can kind of mouse over the different factions in the diplomacy map and can see, oh, okay, so these guys like me because I attacked their enemies. So maybe what we should do is we should talk to them and offer an alliance. And the AI reacts in a much more sensible way than it used to in the previous games. And you can really try to play the AI against another AI, or make an alliance, or backstab them, and all that works. And if you backstab them, everybody will kind of know about it, and they might be a bit more cautious with you, and it really feels more organic. And the other thing is the province system. In previous Total War games, we always had divided the map into regions, and each region had its own capital. What we've done now is we have taken provinces as a group of regions, so between 2 and 4 regions will form a province, and everything that happens is provincial, like you produce money and bonuses and food and all that, and that's all kind of gathered up in the province. Each province has its capital, and what you will see is that when you play a civilized faction, the difference between the big city and the small towns is much more noticeable than when you play a barbarian faction. So the civilized, they have all the industry in the big cities, and they have farms in the small cities. So for the civilized factions, it's very important to own the capital of a province. Whereas the barbarians, they're more agricultural. They have farms everywhere, they can recruit units everywhere and so on. To them it's not so important to have the big cities, but more to just have land, And like that, the game style feels very different. And in each province you have to make choices. You don't have enough space to build everything. You always have to think, do I make a military province here? Or do I make an industrial province? And you have to think about the synergies between the different buildings that you have there and the characters you have in there. And maybe some provinces have specialities, so you're like, this is a very agricultural province, I should maybe go to agriculture, but I really need troops now, So it's a very difficult choice sometimes, and I really think that this has really added another level of gameplay to the campaign map.
And there's one other really nice feature with provinces, which is where because a province is a number of regions, right? So you've got a larger province with 4 regions, you might have 3 little settlements in a bigger city, right? So back in Shogun 2 and often before that, right, every regional conquer was a siege battle of some kind. It was like siege battle, and then you fight armies on the way to the next city, and then you have another siege battle. Whereas now it's like, river battle, forest battle, little town battle, where there's no walls or anything. You just walk in and you have a fight in the town. It's not properly a siege, and it's not until you get to that provincial capital that you actually have a siege battle. So we spaced those out and made them more rare and put more diversity into the kind of battles that you find as you fight your way across the campaign map. And edicts. Edicts. So if you own all the regions in a province, you basically own the entire province, and you then that unlocks the ability to issue edicts, which are like
bread and games.
Yeah, exactly.
Very Roman thing. Bread and games.
Exactly. And then you can there's a number of different edicts. So you can choose bread and games, which basically endorses festivities to happen within that region. So happiness rises over time. So there are different buffs that you can apply. You can stimulate trade as well. Yes. So trade output is much better. And we've got some just really nice visual features. So if you're flying around the map and you're in a bunch of provinces, you'll see like a little kind of rain of confetti over that city, and it'll be green, which means oh, it's traders being stimulated. And so you don't have to bury yourself in the interface to see what edict is being played on that city. You've got a visual marker right there. So it's just, there's so many little extra fascinating little features that are really easy to use.
And we're representing a lot more things directly on the map, like this edict. Or, for example, when you have a city and you build up that city with different buildings, the city grows. And you can see each building that you've constructed directly in 3D on the campaign map, and you can see, oh, okay, so there's an amphitheater here with a barracks and, I don't know, an industrial building, and you can really see it. And
instead of being an abstract,
exactly.
You're like, that's more likely to be a troop production center, basically. Or, you know, that's more likely to be agricultural. So,
you can see roughly what's being produced there, even if you don't click on it, you know.
How will units be affected in the combat field or by strategy outside the combat field before any battle?
Well, in a number of ways, really. So armies, another great thing about armies is armies can now be placed into, and this is true of navies as well, they can be placed into different stances on the campaign map. So if you put them in a fortify stance, they'll build a little fort. So when you go into the battle and you're attacked by, you know that big army is making its way towards you. You go fortify, and you get this nice little animation on the campaign map where stakes rise out of the ground and they stand within the stakes like this. And then when that army hits you, you'll be able to bottleneck them within a little fort.
Yeah, like a Roman fort, you know.
Yeah, you know, one of those kind of flat pack furniture kind of forts they used to carry around with them, you know. So that's
the
one
IKEA fort.
Yeah, exactly, IKEA fort. Yeah. So that's one of many ways in which that can happen. You know, you can place your army into ambush stance, and depending on the kind of terrain that army's in. So, okay, if you're in the desert and you go into ambush stance, the enemy has a lot greater chance of spotting the ambush before it happens, obviously. If you're in the woods or the mountains, then there's a much higher chance of the ambush triggering. So if they walk near you into your zone of control, into your army's zone of control, the enemy army goes boop, 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 and crosses into your zone of control, then it's like, do you wish to trigger an ambush battle? Yes. Boom. You are successful. You'll catch those guys in column, and you get to deploy all around them really close, and you get to smash them, and that's what an ambush is, right? They don't know you're there. So this is like the Teutoburg Forest.
Yeah,
it's
a typical example. Yeah,
it's a perfect example of you know, the perfectly engineered ambush of, you know, get guys in difficult terrain and catch them while they're walking in a long line and they've got their swords on their backs. Bang, you know. So if you put your army into force march stance, so you can make your armies move much faster across the campaign map.
But you can't attack.
But you can't attack. And if you are attacked, you suffer lots of negative modifiers in combat. Because your guys are in marching mode. They've got all their stuff stowed, the baggage train is carrying all the...
They're a bit exhausted.
You know. So, yeah, and they're tired. So, you know, they get negative modifiers. So if you're marching, if you want to get somewhere really quickly and you're marching across the map, don't walk into any ambushes, that's all I'm saying. That's double bad.
And what's really nice as well is the synergies you can have with navies. So, for example, you can have an army at the coast and a navy at the coast, and if you're being attacked, then you have the navy on the battle map as well, and you can then take your navy units and either bombard the enemy if you have like catapults on the navy, or you can land your troops and kind of fall into the back of the enemy while he's attacking you, and these kind of things. And like that, you have many more strategic options to kind of set up a battle really cleverly to win even against greater odds.
So can you give me a little bit of detail on the different multiplayer modes that you have available, and specifically a little bit more detail on co-op? How will co-op work?
So there's a co-op campaign.
Yeah, there's a co-op campaign. So the same as we have with Shogun 2. So we've got 2-player, so you can play competitively or cooperatively. You know, it's just it's 2-player, 2 factions on the Rome 2 campaign map. So it's just like the single-player campaign, except there's 2 of you playing different factions. So in a way, you know, that's quite similar to the way it works in Shogun 2. So it's one of the we've got a really nice new feature called Quick Battles, which is you choose Quick Battle, you choose a faction, and we matchmake you with a similar level player on a specifically created battle map. And it's just a quick way to get in and have some good fun head-to-head multiplayer battles. But I think one of my favourite multiplayer features is the sheer variety. So with multiplayer, right? We ship the game with a pile of different maps for city sieges, for open land battles, for port sieges, port
the
assaults.
famous maps like Athens or Carthage. You can choose them.
So you can go and fight those in multiplayer, or you can just fight dense forest, or anything. But alongside that list of all those different map types, you've got the campaign map. You've got an iteration of the campaign map. You can zoom right across the world and pick where you want to fight in the world. So any of that terrain which you fight across in a single player campaign game, you can go and fight on that in multiplayer. It will generate that battle map from where it is in the world.
Yeah. If it was a good battle, you can favorite it, and so you can do it again later. You don't need to find the exact same pixel,
And you can share your favourites list with your friends. So you find some really cool maps, and you're like, "Hey, we should play on this one. This is really good." And of course, some of those are going to be hilariously unbalanced as well, because some of them might just be a hill like that. The deployment zone is here for someone and here for someone, and it's like, oh, I've got to fight all the way uphill because it's on the side of Mount Vesuvius or something, So finding those cool, interesting, mad, or incredibly well balanced and beautiful maps is going to take people a long time,
Yeah. We're running a bit short on time, I think.
Yes, I think we
I
are.
just have one more question. After Total War titles, what's next for Data Assembly? If you can talk about it.
Sleep, yeah. There's always more Total War, for sure.
Yeah.
We have announced Total War Arena, our free-to-play game that's coming out, and then there's the Alien IP.
Yep. So that's all further down the line as well. But we'll be supporting Rome 2 as well with lots of content post-launch. Lots of interesting new stuff that's going to add some twists to the game as well. So can't talk in any details obviously, but lots of that to look forward to. So we're busy, but we are going to have a sleep first.
Yes,
It's a really big game to make.
Finally, just release dates and platforms.
PC 3rd of September, and that's it.
That's it, yeah.
Keep it simple.